Welcome back to State of the Nation. Now with a metaphorical roll of the drums, it's the moment you've been waiting for. I'm joined by the former Prime Minister, Liz Truss. Liz, thank you very much for coming on. In your view, is this a budget for growth? Could it be a budget for growth?
Well, obviously, it's not a government budget for growth. It's putting up taxes to an even higher level than they already are. It's already at a 70-year high. It's putting them up further. And even the OBR thinks that it's going to be bad news for growth. The Growth Commission have put out analysis showing that it will reduce growth by 3.4% over the next 5 years. And the biggest thing that will reduce growth is the massive hike in employers' national insurance. I mean, this will cut jobs. It will make it harder for businesses to employ people. And it will mean more businesses going overseas, which is very bad news for growth.
And the employers' national insurance increase is a direct contradiction of Labour's manifesto, which said it wouldn't increase national insurance.
Well, it's a lie. They lied in their manifesto, and it is the opposite of what they said they will do, which is increase growth. And this is because they fundamentally don't believe in free market capitalism. This is a very socialist budget. This is saying the only way we're going to generate growth is have the government spend more money. That's what lots of socialist regimes have tried to do over the ages. They've all failed because what we know is the only economies that successfully generate jobs and opportunities are free market economies.
OK, but Keir Starmer says it's all your fault and that what he's actually doing is putting right what you did with Kwasi, and I was part of your team at that time, and that he's had to come in and raise taxes to make up for the Tories mess.
That is errant nonsense. And even the Bank of England have admitted in a report they put out this year that 2/3 of the market spike was down to their failure to regulate LDIs. And the point is that I got blamed and Kwasi Kwarteng got blamed because the entire economic establishment, and by that I mean the Bank of England, I mean the Office of Budget Responsibility, believe in these policies that generate low growth and stagnation. And these people have been in charge for the last 25 years. Yes, Rachel Reeves is a disaster. This budget is particularly bad. But let's be honest, the direction of travel started a long time ago. Higher taxes, higher regulation, more government spending, very high energy costs, no fracking, net zero. These all happened under the Conservative government. What she's done is she's pressed the accelerator on the economic doom loop. So we're going to end up in a dire position much more quickly. Now, what I tried to do, what you tried to do, Jacob, is turn that around. But what we found is massive opposition within the economic establishment themselves who want to command the controlling heights of the economy, but also amongst some Conservative MPs who were not prepared to take on the establishment. And I believe that we're only going to get back to a successful economy when we abolish the Office of Budget Responsibility, when we make the Bank of England properly accountable. I mean, look at their appalling record of inflation. They have not been held to account for that. But so the issue is not just that we have a socialist Labour Chancellor. The issue is we have an entire economic infrastructure that operates against the working people of this country.
What's so interesting about this is that I agree with you, but the OBR is part of this. And you would have thought, seeing all this extra expenditure, this so-called investment Rachel Reeves is going to make, it would upgrade its growth forecasts. But it hasn't. They've come down and its inflation forecasts have come up. So the sort of high priests of the blob don't actually like this budget.
Well, they have forecast relatively low growth. They're going along with the market consensus on growth. I think the growth levels will be even worse than what they've forecast. I think the tax revenues will be even lower. And over time, the benefits of them, and insofar as they benefited the public finances, will be eroded. But the Office of Budget Responsibility, they have taken into account some of the effect, but they haven't taken into account all of the effect. And look at the sheer rates of borrowing. I mean, our plans to reduce taxes, which would have increased growth over the long term, had far less borrowing involved than what Labour are proposing. But we're not seeing the same people jump up and down, are we, about this budget even though there has been a spike in gilt prices today. So what we have is we don't just have the economic establishment, we don't just have many MPs who don't understand free market economics. We also have a media who, by and large, don't understand it too.
Using the internet without a VPN is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. We want to help protect you. This video's sponsor, Private Internet Access, is the VPN to help keep you safe. Now, you might be asking, what is a VPN? Well, a virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. This way, it shields your digital life from the eyes of those that are looking to exploit your private information. Whenever you connect to the internet on a public Wi-Fi network, such as at airports, coffee shops, friends' houses, or even in your own home, your data is at risk of being stolen. Hackers that are connected to the same Wi-Fi network have the ability to steal your personal data with ease. T-Mobile reached a settlement this year with the US Federal Communications Commission after they suffered data breaches in 2021, 22, and 23. In 2023 alone, over 37 million customers' data was exposed. And it's not just hackers to be concerned about. Information can be censored. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news content that you love. Private Internet Access is available for all platforms: Windows, macOS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one Private Internet Access subscription to protect an unlimited number of devices at the same time. Plus, we've got a huge GB News discount. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get 83% off PIA. That is under £2 a month, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free. There's also a 30-day money-back guarantee. So head to piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
This is the reason I'm on your show, Jacob, because you're one of the few media people who actually get economics.
Well, it's interesting that the OBR put out a report today that didn't discover the black hole that Rachel Reeves has been talking about, that it found there was a much lower level of discrepancy, that didn't call it a black hole. It's rather cut the ground from under her in saying that this is all the Tories who've left this terrible mess.
Let's be honest. The Tories' economic record was not as good as it should have been.
Yes.
You know, we ended up with the highest energy prices in the developed world, which has led to the steel industry closing down. It's led to refineries closing down. It has caused some of the stagnation that we've seen. So we did not do well in government because we failed to take on the economic establishment. But Rachel Reeves knew all that. And she could see all those numbers in March and she could make her own judgment. But the point about her is that she is taking dictation from the Office of Budget Responsibility. She is not thinking for herself about what will actually generate economic growth in this country. And I think we've seen in recent years the thinking powers that used to be attributed to chancellors have now been outsourced to so-called experts who aren't experts.
And the energy policy is fascinating because they put up the taxes on energy companies, on oil companies, but they've also, Rachel Reeves has given an instruction to the Bank of England to think about its efforts for net zero and decarbonisation. So you've got a regulatory effort that is adding to the pressure on electricity and energy prices to make us an even more expensive nation, tied in with this 19 billion of carbon capture and storage, which has no prospect of an economic return.
Well, they have bought hook, line and sinker fantasy green economics. And it's no surprise that she mentioned Mark Carney today, who is one of the architects of these types of policy. But the only people who are getting rich are donors to the Labour Party and the green energy companies, whilst normal businesses in this country are struggling with super high energy costs. And it has become a massive scam, in my opinion, this government investment into companies that are associated and in some cases donate to the Labour Party, getting the money from the government whilst others are suffering because the energy price has been driven so high.
And this is making us fundamentally uncompetitive. And it'll be very interesting if Donald Trump wins next week in the United States.
And don't we hope he does, Jacob?
I think, as I keep on saying on this programme, I think it's overwhelmingly in British interests that we should. I don't think it's for me to tell Americans how to vote. I don't think they'd appreciate it. But in terms of this country, I think overwhelmingly beneficial. But if America gives up on the green ideology, which under Trump it almost certainly will, and goes for cheaper energy, it's already seen its GDP per capita in the last 20 years go from being just 10% ahead of ours to being almost double ours. That will just carry on and make us look like the poorer nation.
I don't think people in Britain realise how much better off the average American is than the average Brit. £25,000. That is the gap.
Per year.
Per year, per person. Per year, per person. £25,000.
And we were almost
off.
level with them in about 2000.
That's correct.
So it's a terrible decline.
It is a terrible decline. This is why I say, although I deprecate Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, and they have lied about their plans, they have accelerated our journey to economic decline, it didn't start with them. It started with Blair and Brown. Unfortunately, we didn't do enough to change it, and we've created this massive gap between the UK and America, and it will get bigger under Trump. It will get bigger.
And most of the time, we went along with it. You tried not to. Do you think that things have to be really bad before the country will accept the reforms that are necessary? Is this like the build-up to 1979, that the country had come to a complete full stop?
That is what I fear, because the way I would put it is we tried to do a handbrake turn as the car was approaching the cliff. And everyone said, oh, this handbrake turn is too dramatic, it's too dangerous. But there was a cliff that we are facing. Rachel Reeves has now accelerated that car and it's heading over the cliff quicker. And I believe we are in 1974 or 1975. If you look at energy prices, if you look at the likelihood of a blackout taking place, if you look at the way that huge numbers of millionaires, huge numbers of businesses, huge number of talented young people are leaving the country, it feels like the 1970s again.
And that led to fundamental changes because by 1979 the state simply wasn't working, and therefore Margaret Thatcher had the mandate to do what she wanted to do. And yet in the early 70s, when Ted Heath had tried something similar, he'd had to reverse from it because it didn't have that mandate. And I just wonder whether you think 2028, 29 will be the time when the country is ready for fracking, for lower taxes, for deregulation, for restructuring the public sector, which has become bloated and inefficient. It's not that it gets too little money, it's that it gets too much, and Rachel Reeves is going to give it even more. And
certainly in the 70s, the Labour government had to adopt monetarism because they were forced to adopt much tougher policies by the IMF. They had to go cap in hand to the IMF, and I don't think we can rule that out in this scenario. You know, debt has gone over 100% of GDP for the first time since the 1960s. If you look at the bond market, if you look at the level of extra borrowing Rachel Reeves has taken on, it is absolutely huge. I certainly hope I certainly hope that people in Britain see sense and we do pursue the policies that are going to lead to increased growth and increased opportunity, increased prosperity. I hope we don't go down an Argentina route because things got a lot worse in Argentina.
Came in.
Now we have Milei, which is great news, but that took a very serious situation in that country.
One sort of final thought, 44% GDP, expenditure, 38.2, record level of taxation. But that's still a 5.8% gap with under 2% growth. That is the definition of unsustainable economics, isn't it?
Yes.
Brilliant. Liz, thank you so much for coming on and giving your reaction to the budget. But